Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident Podcast. It is a weekly chat about socially conscious topics impacting the culture. On this episode, we are joined by Sambaza, host and creator of the Sambaza Podcast.
And then we have Tiffany Bird. Now, she asked the question about the senator, Ms. Sims. She's asking why the senator and the other representatives, what was their reason for saying no?
So in 2020, Ron Johnson's objection was we could not fiscally, because he's a fiscal conservative Republican, could not fiscally support another paid holiday. All right. We were already in deficit mode financially as a country. Right. And so he said that he could not in good conscience support, putting more money out. Right. Because, again, a federal holiday pays all federal workers. All right. No matter where they are across the country, in the U.S., in the world, right? They get the day off. So that's a budgetary line item, right? And we were already in a deficit, right? So he said from a fiscal responsibility, he could not support. Now, he did support making Juneteenth a holiday if they took away Columbus Day. Well, see, now it was already being Indigenous People Day, right? So they were already changing from Columbus Day to Indigenous People Day. Well, you can't take away something that we've been supporting for years, right? So, but that was why he said no. And he took that away. He took that objection away in 2021.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident Podcast, a weekly chat about socially conscious topics impacting the culture. We are very pleased to have our co-host, Sambaza, host and creator of the Sambaza Podcast. He is a two-time nominee for the Best African Diasporan Podcast by the APVA, and he is from the Republic of Kenya in East Africa. He has also been a presenter at the Afros and Audio Podcast Festival discussing Pan-Africanism, and he will be the 2024 ambassador for Afros and Audio Podcast Festival. Again, welcome, Sambaza. How are you?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Jen. How are you?
Doing well. Glad to see ya.
Another week.
We are. And thank you for everyone joining in. I'm very pleased to have you join us with this content that we're doing and another great episode and guests for you today. Any thoughts about our guests and show?
Oh, I think it actually ends the month in a great way, because I think being Juneteenth, it's a way of celebrating the end of the month, and it's a whole month of celebration. And I think it doesn't stop here, but this is just culminating what has been going on over the last month.
I agree. And it's, as long as we've been celebrating Juneteenth in so many different spaces and ways, there's still a lot of people out there who don't really know a lot about it, from all cultures and backgrounds, including, a lot of Black folks. So I think this will be eye-opening for many and, some good information for sure. All right.
True.
I will go. Yeah, for sure. So with that, we'll go ahead and talk about our next guest. Our next guest is the president and founder of the Unity Unlimited Incorporated, a grassroots organization focused on educating young people about diversity, unity, and tolerance. She's the granddaughter of Dr. Opal Lee, who is often referred as the grandmother of Juneteenth. Her activism and dedication to the movement was instrumental in making Juneteenth a federal holiday, the 11th federal holiday. So we are glad to welcome Ms. Dione Sims. Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you for being with us. I'm so pleased to have you today. How are you?
Doing well. We have completed our Juneteenth activities for the month. And so now waiting to exhale? Now we're exhaling.
Fabulous. Glad to hear that. So Sambaza,
Actually, how has it been so far? Because I know I've seen you do a lot of work on the scenes over this past weekend. I know there was the walk and everything else. How did that go?
So we actually have a full month of Juneteenth activity starting from the first of the month. Our ecumenical, which is our breakfast of prayer, where we acknowledge God and thank Him for the freedom that Juneteenth represents. And we pray for our nation. We pray for the healing of our nation because the original sin of slavery has torn through our country and it still affects us today. So we
Mm-hmm.
pray for our country, and then we have our Miss Juneteenth pageant. Our Miss Juneteenth pageant, we had 14 young ladies who were a part of our enrichment program from January to June, and it culminates with the presentation and the pageant. So we now have a Miss Juneteenth DFW who will be representing the DFW area in the state pageant. July the 11th in League City here in Texas. And she really has the capability to go on to national. If she wins the national in October, we will have had the second of four Miss Juneteenths from the DFW area represent the national Juneteenth organization. So we're really looking forward to how well she does this coming up in July. Then we have our youth program, which is a vocational and a fine arts program for 2 weeks. And then they participated in our Empowering You, which is our educational component of Juneteenth. It was 2 days of panels of health screenings, of course, blood pressure and diabetes, mammograms and prostate screenings, job fairs. And so all of that is our educational component, because Juneteenth is more than red soda, water, and barbecue. It is an empowering holiday. And so then we had her walk. And her walk was our big symbolic symbol of freedom and the unifying of people just coming together to show their support for what Juneteenth represents. And so we've been at it since the beginning of the month. And so it's been a great month, though, for sure.
Okay. Okay, because I did see one time when they talked about it in the DFW news stations, they talked about what you do, and I've been following you for a while, looking at what's happening, and yeah, it's a lot of work, and Grandma must be really tired right now. How is she
Actually,
doing?
you know what? I compare her to do you in Black Panther, all right? When Siri made T'Challa the second suit that absorbed all the hits and then pushed it
Mhm.
out. My grandmother wears this suit and it absorbs people's energies when she's out and about, and she is okay. I mean, and so as long as she gets a chance to take a power nap, she's good to go. But for the most part, she absorbs the positive energy that people give her, and when she goes out. And so she's like the Energizer Bunny. I promise you, she just keeps going and going and going.
All right, so now this brings about why we have you today. We're going to talk about her in your eyes, and
Okay.
start off by telling us a little bit about your grandmother. I know you just started it. Just tell us a bit about her and her lifelong dedication to making Juneteenth a federal holiday,
Well,
and
folks
what
make it
inspired.
sound like
Go ahead.
it's been a lifelong dedication for her to make it a national holiday. Quite honestly, she enjoyed celebrating Juneteenth as just a Texas thing for years. She grew up in Marshall, Texas, celebrating it at the campgrounds. They made a big deal of it in Marshall. When they moved to Fort Worth, there wasn't that formalized big Juneteenth celebration that she was used to. So folks celebrated Juneteenth, with the family in the backyard, at homes, kinds of things. And then in the 70s, with the Poor People's March, there was a resurgence of celebrating Juneteenth in the nation, right? Because they actually had the Poor People's March on Juneteenth on purpose intentionally. So it brought a resurgence into something that had faded away, which is celebrating Juneteenth. And so in the 70s, she and a group, matter of fact, she is just one of two of the original team that put together the first Juneteenth celebrations in 76 here in Fort Worth. So she and Dr. Reverend Masters, Henry Masters, are the only two left of that team of about 20 people back in the 70s. And so Juneteenth has, long been celebrated by her. She wasn't until 1998, 99 that she met the late Dr. Ronald Myers, who had been championing for Juneteenth to be a federal holiday. And he introduced her to that concept. Texas made it a state holiday in the 1980s with Al Edwards, right? So it's been a state holiday for us. Okay. But Dr. Ronald Myers of the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation introduced her to the concept of why Juneteenth needed to be celebrated nationally across the country. And she, took to that for, that's she understood what it represented. And so she joined the board of the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation. And we worked really hard since 2000 to, lobby Congress and lobby our legislatures and things to help it become a national holiday. As a matter of fact, Dr. Ronald Myers is responsible for 42 or 43 states recognizing and having days of observance for Juneteenth on their state roll. So to say that she's had a lifelong, to make Juneteenth the national holiday isn't really true. But since the, turn of the century, since 2000, so 25 years, yes, she has. Wow. So a couple of decades. She was just happy to be celebrating it in her own little world, right? And making sure people in Fort Worth celebrated Juneteenth. And so she kept the Juneteenth festivals and parades and things going from the 70s, even after all of her peers, started to fall off. She kept it going.
Now, Ms. Sims, you just mentioned that 25 years, that is a long time with trying to get the national observance recognized. What were a few of those challenges? I mean, I can imagine.
Well, the greatest challenge to the movement, not just to my grandmother, but to the movement, was getting people to see a broader context of Juneteenth than just Texas. Mm-hmm. And, they, fought Texas. They fought us here in Texas because we held it so close to the vest. That was the day that enforcement came here. And so the other states were like, why are we celebrating Texas being told late? Why that, right? So if you really want to celebrate freedom, then it needs to be when the 13th Amendment was ratified that, caused slavery to be outlawed in the U.S. Do you know when the 13th Amendment was ratified? December of 1865. What are we doing in December? Christmas. What are we doing in December? Christmas. You can't celebrate freedom and Christmas at the same time. Come on. So the other thing that they said, well, really, if you're celebrating, the enforcement of well, then you need to celebrate when the emancipation took place. Emancipation went in effect January 1st of 1863. What are we doing on January 1st?
That's going to be New Year's.
Getting over New Year's Eve, right? Yeah. Celebrating the New Year. Well, you can't put those on those days, right?
Right.
And so when you try and find a day that symbolically represents freedom and emancipation, you find a historical day of significance, which slaves were, freed on, and that's Juneteenth. So having the ability to have a national narrative around the significance of Juneteenth that everybody could understand was the greatest challenge, and accept was the greatest challenge. It's kind of like Christmas. Christmas celebrates the birth of Jesus, a historical fact. Person walked on earth. It did happen. But December 25th is not the day that Jesus was born on, but it is the globally recognized day to celebrate a historical fact. And that's what we had to elevate Juneteenth out of a Texas connotation to being a representation of the national freedom of emancipation, right? So that was the greatest challenge, is getting people to see it not just as a Texas thing. So
Okay. Now, question: when, as you're growing up, right? Most of us, you look at grandma. You're looking at grandma on a different perspective. When did you realize your grandmother was doing something historic and monumental?
my grandmother was my grandmother. She's a humanitarian first. So a lot of people know her as the grandmother of Juneteenth. That's when she, popped on the stage and, became this celebrity, and the face of Juneteenth. But before that, she's always been a humanitarian. And so I've always seen my grandmother helping people. People, she doesn't throw anybody away. Everybody has a use. All right. And some people have, taken advantage of her, as would happen, but she did not allow that to change her humanitarian need to make sure human dignity, everybody, had a right to human dignity, right? So she, worked a food bank. She still today delivers food to the sick and the shut in and the elderly. And I say elderly because she herself is 97 years old, right? But she's always looked for helping people and making sure folks had a hand up and not just a handout, right? So seeing that and seeing that she wanted to make sure her peer group, those that were her age or a little younger, did not get left in the technology age. We ran a computer school together. I taught it in one of the buildings where actually we're going to be putting the National Juneteenth Museum. But we got a grant to have a computer school for seniors. And but she didn't want her peer group to not know technology, know how to use their phone to talk to their children, right? And be scared of technology. So she's always been that kind. All right. And I've always seen her be that. When she became this national celebrity, it was part of the brand that I helped to build. Right. So she comes and tells me that she wants to walk to DC to talk to President Obama about why Juneteenth hadn't been made a national holiday in 8 years. And and she says, I'm going to walk 2.5 miles in the day and 2.5 miles in the evening to symbolize the 2.5 years that it took for enforcement to come to Texas. And I said, you do know that walking, 5 miles a day, 2.5 morning and evening, President Obama will be out of office by the time you get there. And she said, it's not going to take me that long. He's going to see me walking and he's going to call me to the White House. And so that was her goal. That was her thing. And so my job was to make it happen. She said, and I called my dad. I checked with my dad to say, hey, your mom was talking about walking to DC. And he said, well, you're not going to be able to stop her. And I said, okay, I just want to make sure I'm not going to get in trouble, because my job is to make, whatever she, wants to do happen. And so to that end, I put together the plan. Google Maps has the little blue dots when you put it on the walking little app. When you put it on the walking app, it turns it into the little blue dots. So 1,440 miles, with the little blue dots was what we were started out doing. And we took off September 1st of 2016, walking to Washington and putting together a web page for it, putting together a GoFundMe for it, because putting together press releases and kicking it off. And so that was what I did. And so someone had promised us a RV that we were going to skin and put her picture on it. So when the RV ran through a particular town, folks would know she'd be there and they could walk with her, right? But as we got going, they had a change of heart. They rescinded giving us the RV because they thought what she was doing was too political. Because you remember the back half of 2016 was very tumultuous. It was an election year. And all of the attention was being sucked out of the news cycles, right, at the time. So she didn't get the visibility that she wanted. We did change from a mile for mile walk to a symbolic walk when they rescinded the RV. So we became symbolic. We walked wherever she was invited. Dr. Ronald Myers said, Dione, let me get on the phone. Let me call the state directors that have Juneteenth and have them invite her out and walk with her 2.5 miles. And that's what we did. She walked all over the place. We, Shreveport, Little Rock, Arkansas, Fort Smith, Arkansas, Pueblo, Colorado. She was in Chicago, came down to St. Louis, then into Selma, Alabama. The folks in Atlanta came to Selma to pick her up and take her to Atlanta. So we walked in the HBCUs, and then she went to North Carolina and South Carolina, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and then we went to DC. And she, walked from the Frederick Douglass House to the Capitol in January of 2017. And so that was the end of the first part of the campaign.
Wow, that is really outstanding. And it shows her dedication and determination. It really does. Through that process, I mean, traveling, although you mentioned St. Louis, so hey, St. Louis, that's my city. I had to throw that in there, but it's very inspiring. But I mean, like you said, you were promised some things that didn't come through, and those letdowns. How did she maintain the determination in those moments of being let down by people? Things get in the way sometimes.
To know my grandmother means that she doesn't take no for an answer, because I did ask, are we going to stop now that we didn't get the RV? And she says, for what? And so that's when, we reached out to Dr. Ronald Myers. So my grandmother doesn't, again, it's like that blow from Black Panther. All right. So she just takes that negative, letdown and absorbs it and goes, okay, let me push out some more positivity, and we're just going to keep going. All right. We're going to still step 2.5 miles. We're going to still walk. And so now we change it. All right. So we change it from a mile for mile, walk to a symbolic walk, just as important. And so now we're sharing the walk with others, right? So, I mean, that's just what she does. And for the most part, we didn't face any negative backlash. People were very responsive and positive. And because we had built her Juneteenth cards, all right? So she, handed out, so she's like a little missionary. All right, handing out her Juneteenth cards. And remember, we had did a petition. We had a petition for folks to sign, right? So it gave the information on how to sign the petition so that their voices could be counted, right? Back then, Obama had the We the People petition campaign, if you remember. If you got 100,000 signatures in 30 days, you would hear from the White House. Well, we didn't get 100,000 in 30 days. But it was still a part of the campaign, was to get people to have a way to, acknowledge their support. So in 2019, we reissued her online petition through change.org in October of 19. But it wasn't until May of 2020. Right. We only had 5,000 signatures on it. We were trying to get to 100,000. When George Floyd was murdered, people found that petition. And in a week, we went from 5,000 signatures to 80,000 signatures, because people were looking for a way to show their support for the African-American community. And she and I made a decision that we're going to be at 100,000 in a couple of days. We need to add some more zeros. So we moved it from 100,000 to 1 million signatures that we wanted as our goal. And at Juneteenth, we were at 800 and like 50,000 signatures when we did our walk in 2020. And then we got a call from P. Diddy he had never heard of Juneteenth. And he was from New York and hadn't heard. And so along with Usher, Lupita, Kim Kardashian, several celebrities found her petition, and we got to 1.5 million signatures that we delivered to Congress in September of 2020. So when people were looking for a way to support the African American experience, Juneteenth was what came to mind. And that came to mind, her walk from 2016. And they found our petition on change.org because, by this time we were on social media and stuff. And with the help of celebrities, right, the word got out there. And so we delivered 1.5 million signatures to Congress.
Oh, that's
That's something that you can't ignore, So, wow, that's amazing. That is
yeah.
really amazing.
And this
So
is all about community. Actually, as we talk about community and political support, community is important, especially in social causes. And how did your grandmother mobilize, and create awareness, with the cause? I know she reached out to people.
Well, so what honestly, the political part was really handled by the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation. They had a great arm. And again, Dr. Ronald Myers had built bridges across the aisle, right? So they were really the lobbying part of Juneteenth. Nothing happens by accident. There are always people that have to work those halls of Congress to get people to understand the importance of an issue, of a bill, right? And so definitely wanting to understand that it's not just a her thing, right? A whole bunch of people were already mobilizing. Again, I call her the straw that broke the camel's back, right? That's really what she is. All right. She was that cherry on top that got it pushed over the edge. She brought enough attention and awareness. And you have to see how the confluence of items from George Floyd to Trayvon, even here in Texas with a Tatiana Jefferson, things were just building up that, something had to be done. There had to be something that said, African Americans, we see you, we hear you. Black Lives Matter, right? There's something. And so her push to bring awareness to that need for Juneteenth to address the systemic racism we were seeing is what pushed it through, right? So again, having political friends, all right, people that acknowledge the fact that Juneteenth needed to be a national holiday. It was time for it. Was a long time in coming. All right. You talk about, I say 25 years, like it's just, a drop in the bucket, but they had been working, right. To build that awareness, to build those bridges in the halls of Congress. Dr. Ronald Myers and team had. And so her being a board member of NJOF and putting her personal skin in the game, right? Because that wasn't asked of her as a board member. That was her idea, right? So that was what she gave to the cause. And with that, it just allowed people to find themselves in the Juneteenth story, right? How can they help support the African American community? So it takes a lot. It takes a lot to make a bill. I mean, and you got to get, people on both sides of the aisle. And that's why it passed 100% unanimous vote in the Senate. We worked the Senate quite well. All right. And in the House, because I'll tell you, in 2020, in July of 2020, the Senate put it up for a vote, and one senator blocked it in July of 2020. So when we delivered the 1.5 million signatures to Congress in September of 2020, we had planned to give each representative and senator their state's signatures. Instead, we sent all 1.5, all those boxes, because we had it change.org printed out everybody's name. We sent all those boxes that we took to Washington and mailed them to Senator Ron Johnson's district office.
Oh, wow.
So they walked into all these signatures.
And all those boxes.
All those boxes. But he was the lone senator that made it die in the summer of 2020. So when he released his objection in June of 2021, and the Senate had a unanimous vote of supporting Juneteenth as a national holiday, I got calls. People were calling saying, y'all did it. You did it. You did it. I said, guys, wait a minute. Wait. That's just the Senate. The House hasn't voted yet. All right. Because we turned the cycle, because usually a bill starts in the House and goes to the Senate. This time, if there's a unanimous vote in the Senate, then it gets pushed to the House. So I didn't know what kind of support we had in the Senate, because that was 438 people, not just 50 senators, right? 100, right? There's 100 versus 4. So I didn't know what kind of support we had in the Senate. I mean, in the House. But we had, and so I'll tell you this, Channel 11, CBS, came on that Wednesday, because the senators voted on Tuesday the 15th. Wednesday the 16th, CBS had come by and said, look, we want to get her initial reaction when they do the vote. I said, you think they're going to do it today? He said, yes, it's on the docket. It's going to be on the news. It's going to be on, it's going to be on TV. And we want to catch her reaction. I said, okay. He says, I'm going to just wait in my car till it gets close. And he sat out there from 3:00 to 7:00. And he came in the House. And that's why if you go and you look on YouTube and you look at Stephen Colbert, his monologue for the June the 16th, 17th, when Juneteenth was made a national holiday, is my grandmother, because CBS was in the House to get her initial. So I need you to look it up and find it and see his monologue that captured her exuberance when the gavel came down on a yes. Only 14 representatives voted against it.
Wow.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And so I get the call before the yes vote happens, before the yes vote is final, from the White House, saying the president will be signing the bill and we want Miss Opal there. And I'm like, cool. I was thinking, maybe the weekend, because Juneteenth was on that Saturday. They were going, and he said tomorrow. We need Miss Opal here tomorrow. And so we went to work to get to DC the next day.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
sir.
Okay.
And how was the journey? Like getting there? How was she feeling?
Well, you would have thought she was tired, because we had a grueling day. We were on a 5:30 a.m. American Airlines flight to DC. Being up all night packing, right, to get to DC. We get there. Scott Cullither with Invent, who was a great partner. Love Scott Cullither and the Invent team. He got us there, had transportation, took us to lunch, and then straight to the White House. And so she and I, had to get COVID tests and things, because we're going to be in the room with the president and all of that. And so, but if you watch any of that footage and you see the president bow his knee to my grandmother, and my face hurt, because I was just smiling. So, my face just hurt to see her, because I told her when we started this walk in 2016, I said, when this becomes a holiday, you will be at the signing. I don't care which president it is, who it is. I said, you will be at the signing. And I told her, I said, I told you so. And so to be there and to see that and to witness it was awesome. And she, of course, was humbled. But to know that She was, instrumental in having something that she thought very strongly about, and to be alive, right? Because at the time in 2021, she was 96 years old, right? So to still be alive, to one, have seen a Black president, because she and I were at Obama's inauguration in 2009. And it gets cold in DC. Oh my God. And so walking, all right, to because remember, they blocked all the roads to the inauguration 1 mile out. So we had to walk a mile. We at least had her electric scooter. But that was the longest 1 mile getting to the inauguration ever. I mean, it took us 5 hours. I mean, all those people took us 5 hours to get in her seats, right there with the Tuskegee Airmen. But we've had a great time together, me and my grandmother, I tell you.
That's amazing. Sambaza, we have a few comments. You want to address them?
Right. So I'll go to Ed Campbell, who says, "Peace and light, family." And then we have Tiffany Bird. Now, she asked the question about the senator, Ms. Sims. She's asking why the senator and the other representatives, what was their reason for saying no?
So in 2020, Ron Johnson's objection was we could not fiscally, because he's a fiscal conservative Republican, could not fiscally support another paid holiday. All right. We were already in deficit mode financially as a country. Right. And so he said that he could not in good conscience support, putting more money out. Right. Because again, a federal holiday pays all federal workers. All right. No matter where they are across the country, in the US, in the world, right? They get the day off. So that's a budgetary line item, right? And we were already in a deficit, right? So he said from a fiscal responsibility, he could not support. Now, he did support making Juneteenth a holiday if they took away Columbus Day. Well, see, now it was already being Indigenous People Day, right? So they were already changing from Columbus Day to Indigenous People Day. Well, you can't take away something that we've been supporting for years, right? So, but that was why he said no. And he took that away. He took that objection away in 2021. Not that they found more money.
Okay.
Not that they found more money. But I think he got enough backlash for not supporting.
I bet.
Right.
Yeah, they definitely didn't find any more money to support it, but he did remove in 2021 his objection for those reasons.
Definitely. Let's see. I guess it's on me. And then wow, I just really inspired by this story and your journey. I can just imagine, the flight and, your grandmother and how she must have felt with all of the time spent working on this.
Well, listen to this. All right. So we complete the, signing of the bill. And we had to stay in DC because CNN wanted to have her on at 10. So we stayed in DC. We did the CNN show with the New York mayor's Cuomo show. We did Cuomo show on CNN. And then we got on the rail to go to New York because the next day they had asked us to do Good Morning America. So she's on Good Morning America. So we do this train ride from DC to New York. So, that's 3 hours or however long that is. You know what? It looked like it was daylight in New York when we got there. And it was 1 o'clock in the morning in Times Square. So we got up early, had to get COVID tested again before we could be with those anchors and things. And I remember on the train, I said, "Granddaughter, now that we have the holiday, do you have to walk the 2.5 miles? Can we put you in a golf cart?" And she said, "No, that's my victory lap." And so, because we're tired, I'm serious, I'm tired because we've been up almost, 36 hours now. And, but no, on when we got back home, because that was Friday, Thursday was when they signed it. Friday, we were in New York. Saturday, Friday evening, we get on a plane going home. Saturday morning, we wake up to do our 2.5-mile walk. And
wow.
That turnaround was crucial. But you know how it is when you have adrenaline? You're just kind of high on the adrenaline rush.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we were. And we got through that 2.5 miles and got home. We, had a hydration therapist there for her. And she zonked out. She went to sleep. But she went to sleep happy. She says, my feet, and this is her, my feet are tired, but my soul is happy. And with that, we tucked her in and went home ourselves. But yes, that was a totally awesome time. It really was.
And what would you say, like, the reception of the community was? Obviously.
Again, if you can go out to YouTube and do a search for Opal Lee, you just got to go to YouTube to see it. Go to Opal Lee. Matter of fact, if you specifically look for Dallas Morning News, DMN, and Opal Lee 2021, you'll see that they did a YouTube video of her, and she's doing her holy dance. She always talks about doing a holy dance. But I told her when she does that, I said, granddaughter, you look like you twerking on this video. So now she tells everybody that the young people say she's twerking when she does her holy dance. But that's, if you go out to I tell you what, if you go out to YouTube and find the 2021 Dallas Morning News Opal Lee story about the walk, you'll see what I'm saying. But the community, DFW, was out in droves. And we broadcasted in 2021, Fox Soul did our broadcast, our live stream. They streamed it live all across the country on their station in 2021. So we celebrated with the nation. We did that 2.5, sure did.
Okay, so at this time, we there was a story that I was following, and this was regarding something that happened way back in her youthful years, where not youthful, but when in her younger days, where their house had something going on. I have a question to ask, and this is from your perspective. How did it feel? This is about the house situation. Maybe you want to.
Let me give you the background. Okay. So when my grandmother was 12 years old, her family had just moved in 4 days prior to a new home that my grandmother and my great grandmother and great grandfather had purchased. The realtor did not let them know that the community did not want them there. It was a white side of town. Okay. But we were coming up, right? We were coming up. And go ahead.
Which side of town was this?
In Fort Worth. So if you know Turl Street and New York, all right, over by Chamblee Library, Hazel Harvey Peace, that part of the South Side was white predominantly. Turl Street itself was black, but a few blocks north was white. And so the realtor sold them the house. In 4 days of being in there, a mob of about 500 folks that had been gathering in the days before, the 3 days before, they had started gathering. But on the June 19th of 1939, there was about 500, the newspaper said, that were wanting them out of the house. And my great grandfather sent her and her little brothers out of the back and to friends' houses in the black part of the South Side. And they left Later, after it had gotten dark, they went out the back and they left. And the people destroyed that house. They pulled the furniture out, set it on fire, and everything. And as a growing up kid, she never talked about it. We never knew it happened. And in 2015, she had petitioned the Texas legislature to commission a Juneteenth license plate for the 150th anniversary of Juneteenth. And in doing so, we asked Bud Kennedy to do a story to help promote the new license plate, right? And so, being the good investigative reporter that Bud Kennedy is, he found this story in the Associated Press, not in the Fort Worth Star Telegram, but in the National Associated Press, about a man being put out of their home on Juneteenth. And he called and he said, "Dione, was your grandmother's father Otis Flake?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Dione, I found this story about them being burnt out of their house on Juneteenth. Is that your great grandfather? Is that her dad?" I said, "Send it to me, bud. Send it to me." Wait a minute. We had not heard of this as her grandchildren, as her children hadn't told us about. And it was the story about her. And so she says, "Yeah, I remember it happening." But her mother and her father never discussed it with them. So, and I think that was a coping mechanism, just like people that grew up in the Tulsa race massacre. They didn't talk about it. And matter of fact, the generations now are like, this happened and this happened, because Black folks did not talk about that stuff because, one, they didn't want more retaliation, right? And so as a coping mechanism, you just don't talk about it. And so she buried it. And her mother never talked about it. She never talked about it to us. But I think in burying it, it also protected her heart so that a seed of bitterness did not take root in my grandmother, such that she would hate white people. And because today she's a strong supporter and proponent of unifying and bringing people together. But if they had harped on it and made it about the hurt that they experienced, it could very well have been a totally different story for her, right? But it did happen. And when you look at how God weaves a person's life story, all right, so that out of all things work together for good to them that love the Lord and are called according to his purposes, that happened on Juneteenth. She's now the grandmother of Juneteenth, helping to usher in the Juneteenth national holiday, and who is now getting her house returned to her. And we took possession of the keys. Habitat had the land. They gave her the land, built her house on that land, and we took possession of it on the 14th of June. And on the 19th of June, she had Good Morning America came and interviewed her in the house where she was once burned out of. You cannot make this stuff up. All right. God is totally had my grandmother cradled for a time such as this, and had me building a nonprofit on my own so that I could be the one to take over and help her drive it to here. So, I mean, I'm, creating Unity Unlimited. I thought, to build unity, to build bridges, to, help folks do things together. And for us to come in like this, and Juneteenth to be up under Unity Unlimited now, and me shepherding her legacy and helping her build the brand of unity and the strength of Juneteenth, you can't make it up, right? So it's totally awesome in that way.
And I think there's a side story to that too, because I think Habitat owned the land, and she just called the guy for Habitat, and she was like, "Oh,
Well,
we do it," and then like, "Oh, no problem, you can have it. We got no problem with that."
And so what's funny is Grandier served on Habitat's board for years, on the land
Mhm.
acquisition board for years. So they recently came in possession of the land. They didn't have it for a long time.
Okay.
We had
Oh,
been looking at the payroll, at the tax rolls, to see who owned the land, and we were trying to reach the people that own the land for years. She's been keeping an eye on that land. But we could never get any movement from the people that were on the roll as having been the owners of it, right? And so one day we were doing a podcast, and someone let us know that Habitat had possession of that land. And so she called Gage because they were good friends. She'd served on the board, and told Gage she wanted to buy the land, and he said no. He says, we're going to give it to you, and better yet, we're going to build you a house on it. We're going to restore to your family's legacy what should have been there all these years.
Wow.
right. And this, okay. So now that my question was, since now here's where the question is, how did it feel when she entered the house the first time? What was the feeling in the air when she walked in? What did she do first?
So you have to again go to YouTube. Her life is on YouTube. It's just snippets of YouTube. But if you go to YouTube, you'll find a story with Good Morning America, and you'll see her reaction of actually entering the house and seeing it for the first time. But the elation of seeing a dream fulfilled, right? The one thing she said, I wish my mother and father could see it. I wish they could be here, right? One of the neat things is during construction, they did allow us to go in and write messages on the frame after it was dried in. We had a time to go and write on the foundational frame, the wood frames, as a family. So we have a record of that. And so she wrote a message to her mom. She wrote a message to her parents inside the house. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Cool.
That
That's
is
very nice.
beautiful. It is. It is. We have
And maybe one more thing. Do you know what was the first meal she cooked at the house, if I may ask?
Yeah, my grandmother is not a cooker. All right. So what you have to understand is my grandmother is not your great granny grandmother. All right. So my grandmother is not this cooker that you see. So my grandmother is a, go out to eat, or people bring her food to eat. So she's not a cooker. All right. By any stretch of the imagination. She does do food once a year, and it's on New Year's. She invites everybody to New Year's dinner. All right. And so now that's the one time she cooks, or she has someone cook. She caters it or whatever now. But she has not yet cooked. I don't know that she will ever cook. Matter of fact, when we were at the house, the Girl Scouts brought her a chicken pot pie in a big dish and a peach cobbler to warm up. So she will probably never cook. But
well, in that respect, what's her favorite dish?
Her favorite dish is greens and cornbread and black eyed peas.
Oh, there we go. That's what's up.
No, I was tickled with that. I can appreciate the Girl Scout, the Girl Scouts.
The Girl Scout. Oh yeah, you are a Girl Scout too, right?
I am a Girl Scout leader, and so I can appreciate the Girl Scouts. saluting and paying tribute to your grandmother, I was thinking about them. We recently took a trip to the National Civil Rights Museum, and I was just thinking about everything that it took 20 plus years. That could be a museum alone,
Well,
you
and
know?
it's funny that you say that because the house that she's currently living in or lived in, we're going to make it a museum.
Hmm.
So we're not taking all of the stuff from
Mm-hmm.
the old house to the new house. And so one of the things that I want to do, and I need help in doing it, is I want to record her now and build a hologram in each room talking about the various things on the wall, so that and it's motion censored, so that when you walk into the room, she's telling you about the plaques and telling you about the because she has a copy of the bill that was signed, right? A picture of her with the president, right? So I'm wanting to have a hologram of her. So I've got to start now, right? Recording her talking about these various things, so that the technology and the projectors and all of that can be a part of making the house a museum. The
Oh,
old
you got a
house.
lot of.
Yeah, it could totally
Oh, the
be
old
a
house.
museum.
Uh-huh, the old
Yeah.
house.
Mm-hmm.
Like the
Mm-hmm.
Clinton house or MLK's house in Atlanta,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
totally.
yeah.
Absolutely. That's amazing.
And then it'll be open
Okay.
to the public
It will be
for
open to the
viewing.
public, right?
Mm-hmm.
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 Yeah.
When you talked about something, a museum that's coming up. Other than that, is that it's going to
The
be at the place?
national,
That's the one
yeah,
we're
so
talking
that's the National Juneteenth Museum.
about. Okay, let's talk
So,
about that.
all right. So the National Juneteenth Museum is slated to open 2026. And you have to know about Jared Howard, who's a Fort Worth person here, born and raised. Several historical ties to the area. Matter of fact, his grandmother is one of the leading people who started or was a part of the Freedmen's Town of Stop Six, right? And so he came and talked to Granddaughter about kind of why his job, we had went to ask for money to support Juneteenth, and they didn't have it, but they sent him to kind of smooth it over with Miss Opal. And so she said, okay, we did that. What do you want to do? Who are you? Right. So she asked, because she's always concerned about people and their visions and dreams. And he told her about a project to restore the historic South Side, and to bring economic development and revitalization to the historic South Side, just as soon as he got the land. And she told him, I got land. And from that point forward, and that was in 20, let me see, that would have been in 2019. Okay. 2018, 2019. From that point, Ms. Opal gave her land at the corner of Evans and Rosedale as a part of the vision for revitalizing the historic South Side. As we get to Juneteenth being a national holiday, what we understood is that my grandmother had a Juneteenth museum on that land prior to for 20 years. From the time that Dr. Myers talked to her about Juneteenth being a national holiday, she started a Juneteenth museum locally in Fort Worth on that land. And so Jared checked to make sure that there wasn't another national Juneteenth museum anywhere, that there wasn't a sanctioning body that had to approve it being, not in DC, because, most national things are, didn't have to be in DC. And so again, how God orchestrates and, weaves a person's life story. She had her house burned down at 12 on Juneteenth, becomes the icon, the image of Juneteenth, the grandmother of Juneteenth, was there at the signing of the bill. Before that, she had a local Juneteenth museum in the heart of Fort Worth, right? And so now to have the National Juneteenth Museum built in that spot, it's just like, the 777 of the jackpot, right? In Vegas, right?
Yeah.
It's just all lined up.
Mm-hmm.
And so the National Juneteenth Museum will be in the heart of the South Side in Fort Worth.
Nice.
Okay. And I think we have a comment here from Tiffany. She says, "What a full circle story. Look at God."
Look
Amen.
at him. I mean, won't he do it? It's just
Mhm.
an amazing life, right? And I thank God that I was a part of helping her come full circle, right? Again, how he orchestrates. You think you're doing your thing for you, and all the while God's got you in the wings because he needs you just a little bit later on to help fulfill a dream and a journey.
Now the journey has not stopped; it's still going on,
Of course not.
and you have the Unity Unlimited org, right? The
Mhm.
nonprofit. What's the vision of? First of all, tell us about it, and then what's the vision going forward?
So Unity Unlimited, again, was birthed out of seeing young people having this resurgence of division and hatred and prejudice that I didn't grow up with. I personally didn't grow up with it. So seeing it in young people, and again, it was birthed, I think, because of stereotyping and profiling was coming into the police, coming back into the fold, right? And so my goal with establishing Unity Unlimited was to provide opportunities and programming and education about working together. Because if young people cannot work with other people besides the folks that look like them, they weren't going to make it in corporate America. They weren't going to make it, if you can only work with people who look like you. The world is too diverse. So my thing was to help them see people as human beings and not as races, right? And so when I asked my grandmother if I could help her with Juneteenth and understanding her heart for Juneteenth to be a builder and a unifier, it fit well with the mission of Unity Unlimited already. So bringing that under as our programming is one thing. We also have Opal's Farm, which is named after my grandmother because she saw that people needed a job. We live in a food desert here in Fort Worth. And so she asked people standing in line at the food bank why they needed the help of the food bank. And 66 people said that, they were previously incarcerated, couldn't find work or couldn't find good paying work. And so she asked them, would you farm? And they said, yeah, I did it in the system all those years. I know how to farm. And so she set out, again, the humanitarian set out to build an urban farm in our neighborhood that could employ them as well as provide an education. And so that became our Opal's Farm. So not only are we reducing hunger and providing nutritious food, we're also providing a chance to reduce recidivism because now you're pumping in that human dignity factor of a person's time served not being time wasted. And they can find worth and they can find value in having served on Texas Farm because now I can put that to work and provide for my family, right? So that's another one of our programs. We also give scholarships. And our third program is our Secret Santa program. And our Secret Santa program, unlike most Christmas programs that focus on getting toys for kids, we focus on helping grandparents who are now raising their grandchildren with shoes, clothes. We try and get them 3 pairs of clothes, socks, underwear, a coat, and then a toy. Because usually there's good programs when school starts for back to school, but not much at the middle of the year, right? And these grandparents are having to, raise grandkids, and they're growing like tumbleweeds, and the clothes, and their clothes are too small, their shoes are run down, and so you're not wanting those kids to, feel bad because their grandparents can't provide for them like they want to, right? So that's our back half of the year. So Juneteenth covers our first half, and then our back half, we work on our Opal's Farm year round. Secret Santa, and of course our scholarships. So we're just about our 3 E's. Our 3 E's are educate, empower, and entertain.
Nice. So we have this question from Nadine Gable, all the way from Louisiana, New Orleans, Louisiana. And she says, now with all these amazing and famous steps, how do we get Blacks to wholeheartedly support Juneteenth, the 19th? Most businesses didn't sell J19 merchandise this year. Many Blacks didn't even know, care, or disapproved of celebrating J19, that's June 19th. How do you change that dysfunctional mindset? But before we get into it, now I'll tell you this. She throws a mean Juneteenth party every year.
Miss Nadine does?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it really does take education. A lot of people still believe that Juneteenth celebrates slavery, and it doesn't. Juneteenth celebrates freedom from slavery, but you also have to elevate Juneteenth to be more than just a historically relevant something that happened in the past. Juneteenth has to take on the rallying cry of what freedom means for everybody. And one of the things that I think Black folks, again, when we started this conversation, we kept making Juneteenth just about the African American experience, all right, and trying to make it just about us overcoming, the hardships of slavery, our resilience. Juneteenth is relevant today and tomorrow because it becomes a sounding place where we can have some real conversations about the effects of slavery on us today. And so that's going to be, if we can get Black folks to sing Juneteenth not as a mark of disapproval or disgust or of a inferiority complex, but an empowering holiday, then the young people will see that because I have Juneteenth, I can talk to you about racial discrimination. I can have real conversations about what does reparations look like. One of the things people used to say before we got the holiday is, well, what about reparations? What about I said, you cannot repair what you don't think existed. And what Juneteenth does is it says, America, slavery existed and it caused an irreparable harm on this ethnic group. And so now we need to repair that breach. That's what Juneteenth does, because it's on the national calendar. We can talk about the effects of that drop into this pool of life and the ripple effects that are still happening through time 400 years later, right? And we have systemic racism. We have redlining that happened, all the effects of Jim Crow. You can't say that that did not keep people from being successful. It did. So now what are we going to do about it? So we've got to make Juneteenth empowering instead of folks thinking that it is, a lower subclass holiday because it reminds us of that we were enslaved. No, it's empowering because that we can use that to now bring change in policy, in procedure. And the other thing too, is that we've got to allow Juneteenth to allow people to come together to celebrate us. One of the things that we, have a problem with is they call it a white savior mentality. We can't let white folks celebrate Juneteenth. They're going to take our holiday. That's bogus. All right. You almost made me say something else. But the thing is that Juneteenth will always be an African-American holiday. It celebrates our history, our culture. But what you do when you allow people to celebrate you and celebrate your history, that brings it out of the back room to the forefront. It becomes a part of popular culture because now we can talk about it for real, right? And so as we work together, I put it like this. What I don't need is sympathy. Yes, we were oppressed. We had it hard. It wasn't fair. Life wasn't fair. Black, white, colored, all that stuff happened. It did not need to be erased. You can't sugarcoat it. You can't whitewash it. It's history, good, bad, or ugly. I don't need your sympathy. What I do need is I need your empathy. I need you to be where I won't be or where I'm not right now. I need you in the boardrooms. I need you on Capitol Hill in those committee meetings. I need you, on the school board. When you hear of stuff happening, my ally, and because you now have experienced Juneteenth and what it means for the African American experience, you can open your mouth and say, you know what, that's not going to be fair to everybody. We can't do that because that's not going to be received right in the African American community or in the brown and black communities if you leave it that way. Let's rework this. And be my champion where I can't be. You understand? And so Juneteenth is empowering. It is not a celebration of our past, but what we can be in the future.
Oh, I like that. Sound very, very nice. So for me, I'm gonna say I am privileged to have this conversation with you because I was telling Jen, and each time we've been joking about this, that when I came into the country, I'm an immigrant. So when I came into the country, I remember at a party, and this was a guy from Philadelphia, and we were in Texas, and they were like, "Oh, this is back in 2003," and he was like, "Oh, what are you celebrating Juneteenth for?" And I was like, "Wait, there's a holiday about Juneteenth," because most of the time, as an African, when we learn history, we learn the history about the U.S. and slavery was part of it, and also, but we never talked. They never talked about. They talked about the emancipation, but they never talked about the Juneteenth. So that was a question that was talked about this barbecue over the barbecue, and I was like, wait a minute, this is what happened. And then many years later, we see it coming. So I do appreciate this conversation. It has enlightened me and warmed my heart as I've listened to you talk about it. And I should be making my way to Fort Worth, actually, and see what.
Please do.
Is.
Please do. I mean, you're in the Metroplex already. You're in Mesquite. You're not that far away.
Right. I'll get my family, and we'll be up there and celebrate. Even the walk will be there.
Well, good. Well, you got to hurry because in 2026, we're going to be walking down. 2025, we're walking Fort Worth. So walk with us here. And in 2026, we're going to be walking in DC. My vision and my goal is for her to walk in the nation's capital. In 2026, the nation will turn 250 years old, July 4th, 1776. All right, will be 250 years. They call it a sesquicentennial. And I want us to be walking for Juneteenth in the nation's capital so we can celebrate freedom from the 19th of June to the 4th of July. One of the things that the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation says that my grandmother is keen on saying is that July 4th freed the land, but Juneteenth freed the people. And so for us to be walking in 2026 in DC, all right, ahead of July 4th, when the country turns 250, is what I'm planning for us to be there in 2026. So you'll get a chance to walk with us in 2025 here in Fort Worth, but in 2026 we'll be in DC.
Hey, who knows? I could be in DC too. We'll be there.
Hey, you can come. Everybody can come, but but that's where she's going to be, and it is my plan that we will have Opal's walks in all 50 states walking simultaneously with us. So if we kick off at 10 o'clock on the East Coast, 9 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock on the East Coast, and everybody starts their Opal's walk at the same time. And if you can't get to one of the host cities that's hosting an Opal's walk 2.5 miles in your neighborhood, 10 times around the high school track, right? To get your 2.5 in and post it. Go live on Instagram. All right. So I'm doing my 2.5 for Juneteenth. So that's what I'm working on now, is to build that movement for her, because she'll be 99 In 2026, in October, she will turn 100.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. All right. And the last comment we have is from Tiffany Batty. Well, I guess you probably know her by now. That's my wife. And she said, well said. And she said, Girl Trek supports the Opal Walk every year in Dallas. She's part of the Girl Trek.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. The Fort Worth group, Girl Trek, instead of going to Dallas, they did a virtual Opals Walk here. Matter of fact, the Como Girl Trek and the Fort Worth, they all got together. So they did a post with their Opals Walk shirts on. Girl Trek is a great supporter of Opals Walk and have been since 2021.
All right. All right. So we'll be there. Jen, I think maybe the DC trip might be one we might be looking into. And anyone who's listening to this show, hey, you're most welcome to do the walk in DC at the time. 2026 it is.
Right. And if they will follow us, what I'm working on now so they can stay up to date on the things that we're doing. If you'll follow her on the Real Opal Lee, that's her Facebook and her IG. Juneteenth Strong is the Unity Unlimited Facebook and IG as well. Like us and friend us and, do that whole number thing would make the algorithms. Oh, I got somebody I want you guys to meet.
Oh, sure. Oh, is she on TikTok? Before I forget.
She is on TikTok. We haven't quite used her campaign yet for TikTok, but she does have a TikTok account.
Oh my goodness.
Oh
my goodness, Dr. Lee.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Lee.
Hello, young people. How are
Hello.
you?
Hello, how are you, Dr.
Real
Lee?
good, real good.
Okay,
So
now
we've
I'm
been,
stuck.
we've been asking questions about you. And so I thought I'd let them, since you popped in, have a chance to say hello.
Well, I've said hello, young people.
Hello, welcome to our show. We weren't expecting this.
Wanted what?
Say they weren't expecting it.
Well, okay, here I am.
Oh wow, we are so pleased to have you, and we just are in awe of the work that you've done toward Juneteenth being a holiday and just your story. We are truly honored to be speaking with you.
Just think of me as your grandma, okay?
All right. All right.
All
Yes,
right.
ma'am. Yes,
All right.
ma'am.
So, what are you young people talking about?
We're talking about you.
We've been talking about you. And so well, we can't spend a whole nother hour having you retell what I told.
Okay.
So, but do you want to admonish them in any way? Give them the close, because we were closing out and I saw you. So you want to give them your something to a call to action?
Yeah. Don't ever miss an opportunity to tell young people to make themselves a committee of one, to change somebody's mind. We know people who aren't on the same page we are on. Change their minds. And their minds can be changed. If people have been taught to hate, they can be taught to love. And it's up to you to change their minds.
Right.
And there you have it. That is her.
Amen.
And
Well,
we
we
have
thank
one
you.
last comment. I think she wants to throw it in. This is from Tiffany again. She says, hello, Dr. Lee. Thank you for everything you did and continue to accomplish.
As his wife.
Hi. Well, give them my regards and my love. Will you do that?
I will, definitely.
All right. All right.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be a part of the
Absolutely.
podcast. And oh, did I tell them? I didn't tell them about your book.
Did you tell
Oh,
them
yeah.
about museum.
Talked about the museum. Did talk about
Yes.
the museum.
Yes.
So Miss Opal has a book. Let's see. Here it is. Juneteenth, the
Oh,
children's story.
good.
Okay.
And so you can order your copy on her website, therealopallee.com. And it's a great resource for telling the Juneteenth story. All right. I'll show you. I'll show you a couple of pages. Talks about the transatlantic slave trade and the slavery, but it also has the picture of her at the bill signing in it. So they can order a copy, and this will be great for families of all ages, of children of all ages. Right, therealopally.com.
And can I get a signed copy?
Um,
Yes, you can.
I'll come for it. I'm serious. I'm dead serious. I'll come for it. I'll probably present it to my nieces and nephews so that they can have it
Okay,
as a copy.
let me know when you're coming, so I'll be here.
Oh, for sure,
Okay.
for sure.
He's gonna come pick it up.
okay.
Very
All right.
good.
All right.
That's it.
Thank you, Miss Sims. We appreciate you and
Pleasure
Dr.
having you.
Lee. Can please continue the work. We appreciate it, and we'll be supporting, and we will spread the word.
Thank you so much.
Nice knowing you, young
Okay,
people.
take care.
All
All
right.
right.
Bye-bye.
Amen.
Bye bye.
How about that? Was that a surprise?
So
Look at that.
I had asked her if grandma was going to be around, and she said, no, she's not going to be around. So I was like,
Oh,
okay, cool. And then that was a great surprise.
it
I was,
was.
can you imagine that?
That's pretty cool. I wasn't expecting that. That's
I
pretty
was-
cool. Okay. Well,
How did you
that's
find the show?
I thought it was great. Miss Sims is such a joy and great energy that she shared with us and the viewers. Like she shared, a lot of people don't know about Juneteenth. Celebrities or regular people and things like that. With it being a federal holiday, I think it's kind of, people are paying a little more attention, but that story and, what we want to celebrate, I don't think that message is clear. I wanted to chime in, but I didn't want to get too wordy with, ways of acknowledging it. I've seen a lot of cities, including right here where I am, do like Black business fairs and, even online with so how can you celebrate and acknowledge Juneteenth? Support a Black business, support an independent local business, and put money back into the economy in the Black community, especially small Black business owners who don't normally get the type of support that other businesses get. So there's a lot of different ways to acknowledge it. Like you said, it's just not red soda and barbecue. This is a real thing, and to kind of get that story behind the mission, like I said, I was saying this is a museum, even though obviously museums are in motion all along, but this is totally, this
Right.
is a movie, you know what I mean? Like, this is totally a movie and all of that. So I'm inspired. For
And I think
sure.
if they start like for the month, like the way we do Black History Month, and then maybe they incorporate businesses like Black Business Week, where
Hmm.
they'll probably do like Restaurant Week, Black Restaurant Week as well. Part of the whole week, throw in whichever part of the country you're in. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that it's it falls in Dallas, Texas, or whatever. No, no, no. Even in the South, all over or up north. But just to acknowledge for that particular month, even though it's 365, we have to remember this. It's always 365, not this one time. It's just to highlight that part and celebrate that part, that part of the history that we have, and it's great now that I've come to get to learn about it much more than before. So, Jen,
Agreed.
I think we are done for the day. I think
All
my cup is
right.
full.
It is. So, everyone, hopefully you found today's episode meaningful. Please consider sharing it with friends or families. Our collective awareness and advocacy play a crucial role in creating positive change. So, we encourage you to stay tuned for more engaging content. We look forward to continuing these important conversations. And, Sambaza?
With that, we want to say bye. Please follow us on the socials and like and subscribe so that we can be able to give you great content and you can know what's coming up through our socials. And guess what? See us next week when we'll come up with another story.
With that, take care. At this time, we're going to go ahead and conclude the episode. We greatly appreciate you listening. We invite you to follow us on social media. On Instagram, it is Woke by Accident Podcast. On Twitter, it is Woke by. On Facebook, it is Woke by Accident Podcast. We also have the new website up, www.wokebyaccident.net. Please check us out. And also follow us on all of your favorite streaming platforms. And please leave a review and share feedback. You can also reach out by Gmail, wokebyaccident@gmail.com. And every time you listen, we appreciate it so much. Thank you for listening and take care.